And now, prepare your ear holes for penetration as we bring you another great podcast from the Poop Culture Extended Universe.
Hey dudes and dudettes, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Be Kind and Rewind podcast, a podcast chock full of everything that is nostalgic about the 80s, 90s, and more. I'm your host, Carlos. This episode, we're turning that dial on the TV to list our most obscure 80s and 90s cartoon shows. So joining me is a gang that specializes in nostalgic cartoons where you can listen to their animated shenanigans. So I welcome Robert and Ray from the Knowing Season 3 podcast.
What's going on, y'all?
Hey, everybody.
Well, I guess I need to change that back. I have Chan and Ray, right?
Yeah, whatever. Robert Clark Chan is my full name. Yeah, it was just Chan before.
Yeah, but if we call him Robert the whole episode, it's going to get real weird real fast.
Yeah, it feels like I'm talking with my mom, and that's just awkward. Although, weirdly, my mom actually calls me Chan now, even though her last name is Chan. It's a strange dynamic.
No, I feel you because my name's Carlos, but everybody since I was like in middle school has called me Los. So whenever I hear of my full name, it is weird. So I understand. So Chan and Ray, we're going to be rocking out today. Thanks for taking the time. You guys coming from Knowing Season 3 podcast. Let the listeners know a little bit about your podcast and how
Absolutely.
It came to be.
Yeah, well, originally the podcast was known as Knowing is Half the Podcast, the G.I. Joe recap show. And we did, the goal was to do every single episode of G.I. Joe, as well as the movies and what have you. And then we did it. We did that. We finished every episode.
We won.
Yeah. I know. We defeated G.I. Joe. But we still wanted to keep doing a show, even though we ran out of G.I. or mainline G.I. Joe to do. Mm-hmm. So plus, we had a whole contractual thing happen with a certain podcast network that caused us to lose the name rights of Knowing is Half the Podcast for one full calendar year. So now we are Knowing Season 3. This is the third season of the show.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. In retrospect, a few months later, it's the worst name we could have possibly come up with.
It's great for people who already know who we are, but for people that don't, maybe not such a great choice. It's cool. At the end of the year, we'll be back to being Knowing is Half the Podcast for Season 4, so we're just sort of waiting it out.
Nice. The legal battle ends at that point. Yeah, I saw that you had the previous
battle. I'd say we lost.
Yeah.
I'd say that's how it went.
Sometimes you got to take the L, but you guys moved on smoothly. I mean, the name, it's doable for sure. And like you said, you're moving on. It's like you're reinventing yourself. The podcast reinvented itself, and so now you get to go back to your original form at some point.
I'll just say one thing that Buzz Dixon, who was the head writer of G.I. Joe, Transformers, Gem, a lot of 80s cartoon shows.
Some of that is true.
Yeah, some of it. Well, I'm going to give him more credit than he deserves. That's fine. He's a great guy. We had him on the show, and one thing he told us about placeholder names was make it as terrible as possible. Make it the most upsetting, worst thing that you possibly can so it doesn't accidentally become the actual name. And I wish we would have taken that advice because we would not have been Knowing Season 3. We would have had to change it from Grandmother's Diarrhea Podcast or whatever it ends up being,
It's true.
I don't know if you know G.I. Joe at all, but Cobra Law is this place where Serpentor came from, and Buzz Dixon came up with the name as like a fill-in. Like it's because he was like, it sounds too much like Shangri-La. Everybody knows that. That's a stupid-ass name. We'll find something else to replace it. And the studio execs were like, perfect. We love it.
Not good enough.
Like, no.
No, this is not what I wanted it to be. Yeah, no, I feel you. The placeholder name, you never know what's gonna happen, but you're keeping your audience on their toes, basically, on what the name is gonna be eventually. But also, we'll get all the links down below so everyone can go check you guys out. We'll get everything plugged a little bit later. But like we talked about earlier, we're here to list our most obscure 80s and 90s movies because you guys are the experts in this situation. As you know, growing up, we basically watched the golden age of cocaine-induced animation series based on the wildest ideas that would influence a whole generation. So we're going to go list our most obscure ones that we think personally, and then we're going to go through and we're going to try to narrow it down to the most obscure 80s and 90s cartoon of all time. Do you think that's possible today?
I think we can give it a good effort.
Yeah, I think we can get a good old college try. So yeah, without any further ado, guys, let's just kind of jump right into it with the obscure cartoons. My first one, I'll just go right off the bat. This one takes me back to Saturday morning cartoons. I was a big fan of the actors growing up. Just like with most actors and movies, they got their animated versions of things somehow, some way. So I'm going to go with Camp Candy as my first one.
the quietness of darkness, the stories told by firelight, the long nights, the food fights, a summer made of memories at Camp Candy.
Yeah, 1989 to 1992. This one was the official summer camp one, so based kind of out the great outdoors. I guess I attribute it to. Did you guys watch it very much as well?
I watched it when it was new and live on Saturday mornings, I believe on ABC.
Yeah, exactly. 13
Camp
episodes.
Candy. I forget the theme song.
It was basically like John Candy was like the head dude.
Yeah. It was a summer camp. Think of the TV show Bunked, except John Candy is your counselor. Or Salute Your Shorts. That was an old show that was sort of reminiscent of that style.
Or Meatballs, if you're old enough for that.
Oh, some Bill Murray.
Yeah.
But family friendly and with John Candy.
Sure.
Exactly. And he sang the intro, so you could hear him just belting it out through the whole intro. 13 episodes, I guess that's pretty good for an animated show based on a character who is very popular in America, but even more popular in Canada. So I can't remember if they aired it both places or not. But I think they would at least had to capitalize on some point. But it was basically a show that formed around life lessons John Candy would give to these kids about, the environment or saving the whales, things like that. So it was one of those run-of-the-mill shows where it was more life lessons. But, John Candy, that was a solid name to bring in because most of the times they don't have that kind of name to bring in with these type of cartoons. So Camp Candy, even though it had a short run, it definitely had somewhat of a long-lasting effect on me.
Actually, I mean, I when you said 13 episodes, I said I feel like they made a lot more than that.
Oh, I'm sorry. 13 episodes ran in syndication. They had 27 total.
13 plus 27. 40.
Oh my God, I'm doing the math all wrong.
Of
Yeah.
Camp Candy.
Jeez.
I mean, I'd say right now it was a Deke show, which Deke is Deke is the people that made G.I. Joe Series 2. So when the contract came up after 2 excellent seasons of the G.I. Joe cartoon, the company, the French company Deke, famous for Inspector Gadget, and then a pyramid scheme after that, as they basically tried to make shows on the sly as little as cost as possible. So the fact that this was made by Deke really tells you everything you're going to need to know. They paid all their money to get a star and then put no money anywhere else.
It was the early 90s, so they were definitely on their downhill slide. It wasn't as bad as it would get, but not great.
Yeah, so like I said, the John Candy name just really what stuck out the whole time. Of course, Camp Candy and the 89 and 92. What movies? He just does Uncle Buck.
You ever hear of a ritual killing?
I don't get it.
You know, on her face in public like that again, and you'll be one.
I mean, Spaceballs was 87.
Yeah.
A couple years early. I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles maybe around that same ish time. It was 86. But that's what he was in the conscious for. Like, kids loved John Candy. Uncle Buck, I think maybe was right around that exact same time.
Yeah. So.
I would say, here's what you need to know. It originally aired on NBC, 89 and 91. That's all good. Went into syndications in 1992. All good. After that, it shows up on the Christian channel. And if your cartoon is going to the Christian channel, there's some problems.
Yeah,
there's severe problems.
I just believe that means that Camp Candy was a wholesome television show.
No. You can have a wholesome television show and still make it on network television.
That's true.
If you the Christian channel cannot afford much. So,
well, it's funny because I'm looking at the thing. A Christian channel, it aired from 93 to 94, which, for all I know, is the only time the Christian channel was in existence.
I think so too. I'm pretty sure I saw that and Godsmack one time on a Christian channel. So I think they're still retooling and thinking things through at that point.
I think it's just looping Creed videos at this point. I'm pretty sure that's the deal.
Anything that had any godlike in the name, they were bringing it in. So Camp Candy, that was my first one. Who wants to go next? Chan, Ray, or you guys?
I'll go next, although I will say that you just barely scratched the surface. I don't know if any of the rest of yours also involve the celebrities, but there are a host of awful cartoons.
Oh, I feel like that's what I was talking about to you guys earlier. Like, I gotta have you back because we gotta do a special one on just like the adaptations, the celebrity adaptations.
I might have one as my next offering.
Oh, for reals?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna skip around.
You go ahead.
I'm gonna jump right in and say Battle of the Planets.
Battle of the Planets.
technically makes it under this 80s and 90s because it was in production until March of 1980. It was one of the earliest cartoons I remember watching. It was one of the things that got me into anime because it was, you know, it was a Japanese cartoon called Gatchaman, and basically.
Gatchaman.
Yeah, which is also a great name in and of itself.
So like gotcha is what they refer to. Yeah, those like those lottery like loot box drawings.
You're thinking of Gachapon, and those are the little machines that you put 100 yen coins into, and then.
So it's just like it's like Pokemon, except for like those quarter toys.
It is not.
It should
not
be,
even a
that's
little
a brilliant.
Not even.
That is. I thought
I'm
it was.
just mad.
I'm just upset that it's not.
I'm curious what that actually means. I'm sure it has some sort of significance, but basically it was one of these. You've got 5 people piloting a ship that turns into it does awesome stuff, and you know kicks the ass of giant aliens. In this case, the alien baddie that we get on a regular basis is Zoltar, who has a weirdly Chinese accent. I did not know that until I just rewatched an episode recently. But yeah, so it's Battle of the Planets. It got made into it got remade. This is similar to Robotech, where this American company bought the animation and they just jettisoned all of the scripts and just said like, we're just going to piece this together. We're going to come up with, you know, a new story and characters and everything and just go with that.
That's kind of cool though. I kind of wish more shows would do that instead of trying to do these translations of these really weird and kind of sometimes gross storylines.
I think they don't do it as much anymore because the audience is older and savvier, and they know that they're doing that. Back in 1980, I had no idea. I was like, this awesome thing just came from out of space, and I'm loving it.
They're not going to get away with it as easy nowadays.
Yeah. And also, you could just YouTube your original, and you're like, wait, what the hell is this story? But yeah, like, so they did the same thing with Robotech, which I also love dearly. But this was even earlier than that. The animation style is, you know, kind of an old 70s Japanese style. And it's the other thing they did was after they got all of that animation, they created new animation for this character called Seven Zark 7, which is a robot that's supposed to look a little bit like R2-D2, except with wings and little arms. And he
sounds about right, yeah.
Sounds a little bit like C-3PO, except a little livelier. He's got a dog named One Rover One,
and he's got a lightsaber as well.
Right. They don't call it a lightsaber though. It's a
laser sword.
Light beam device.
Does he break down into 5 pieces that 5 smaller people would then pilot?
Not yet.
That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. 7 was there to basically, when their story was falling apart because they were just using animation, they would just have him jump in. I'm like, oh well, this is what is going on right now, which is awful and cheap and kind of brilliant because. You know, it's just so easy to build a story when someone's just like, and then this happened. Great. But the main thing was the Phoenix was their big ship, and they had these 5 people who piloted it. There was Mark, who's the head dude, voiced by Casey Kasem, which is
what? Casey Kasem, top 40 Casey Kasem?
Casey Kasem did a lot of stuff back in the day.
He was the voice of Robin on the Super Friends of Batman and Robin fame.
He was also Shaggy and Scooby-Doo.
Like, wow, my favorite. A double, triple-decker sardine and marshmallow fudge sandwich. Open the mouth, between the gums. Look out, stomach, here it comes.
Yeah, he was all about that voice life. And then you had Jason, who was... I don't know if they do that so much anymore, but Jason was like the second heartthrob, but he was like the bad boy.
Oh, so like what I am on our podcast.
No, absolutely
nailed
not.
it. Yep.
He's in the boy band. He's the one with the really thin goatee.
Okay.
He's just a little bit badder than the rest of them.
That's a really
so right now I'm the bad boy on the podcast and with my little tiny goatee. Okay.
That I will buy. There's also Tiny, who's the big dude. You had Keops, who was a little dude who had a weird voice affectation. And then you had Princess, who was the girl. She was the one who wore pink and
the girl. That's how a lot of these shows
the
work.
girl.
It's the girl, you know.
And yeah, basically at the end of every episode, they would hit the button and it would their ship would turn into this flaming bird that would destroy, whatever robot they had to face.
Rad as hell.
Yeah,
It does sound pretty rad.
I watched it recently and I was like, holy crap, this kind of holds up. There's a lot of terrible things about it. Like what episode I watched, they went to another planet. They discovered another planet that was exactly like ours. It was millions of light years away, but it had the same atmosphere and people and airports and single engine planes for some reason. And they had a giant space mummy.
So it's exactly like our planet.
Exactly like our planet.
Yeah.
So there's like crazy stuff, but also like the story kind of held together. It was like this little kid who was waiting for his dad who had been killed, and he was like waiting at the airport every day. And then the bad guy came in dressed like him, so he swore that like the kid knew that it was his dad. And even after it was revealed that it wasn't his dad, he still believed it, and he was still mad at the main character for like fighting his dad. And like the end of the episode, this little like 6-year-old boy is like crying, and the lead character's all like, well, like sometimes that happens. Hopefully someday he'll learn. And like, that's it.
Damn,
Walk away.
That's pretty
our
deep.
life lesson.
Yeah.
You'll get that in Care Bears episode.
That's harsh.
It was beautiful.
Man.
What was the name of that one again?
Battle of the Planets.
Battle of the Planets. Wow. And that's it. 1980 just snuck in there, you said, right?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you, mine here, it definitely did not just sneak in there. We talked before about celebrities. There was an era, and it's pretty much been a huge era, where they would just take a celebrity or a character, and then they would just give them their own cartoon show. On our show, we did the Mork and Mindy cartoon, which was paired with the Laverne and Shirley cartoon, which is just, these are properties that probably shouldn't be animated.
No, not at all.
And in this particular,
you didn't even delve into the fact that they were all spin-offs of the Fonzie show.
That's right.
Where he went through time.
Yeah.
It's true. It's like 6 degrees of Fonzie.
It is the Happy Days cartoon with like some sort of alien dog or something. Like
yes,
it's crazy. Well, the one I chose here, there's a Bruce Willis character named Bruno.
No time for kids games, no time for girls, helping the good guys, saving the world. Call up Bruno. Yeah, call up the kid. Yeah. When you got a problem, call Bruno the Kid.
And we've done an episode of this show on our podcast as well. Bruno the Kid is the show that I will be bringing to you. If you seem to remember this, 1996 to 1997, 1 season, 36 episodes, voiced by Bruce Willis. He plays an 11-year-old child who works it's like an FBI Secret Service to protect America, except they don't know that he's a small child because he has a CGI of Bruce Willis, the adult Bruce Willis, that he uses as his avatar when he talks to this secret organization.
He's catfishing.
What?
Yes. And he's helped by his butler because apparently he's very, very rich.
No, I have no doubt that that Bruce Willis at the age of 6 had a butler.
Oh, without question.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, that goes hand in hand.
Jarlsberg and then Harris is his other friend, and they know he's a kid, and they think it's strange that the U.S. government is enlisting him to be a secret agent, but they never think twice about it because they're like, well, the U.S. government would know better than we do, so we'll just help this 11-year-old fight crime.
Here's the thing. In 92 was it?
96.
96. That would have been absurd, ridiculous.
They should have known better.
That. In 2018, I do not doubt that somewhere there, Donald Trump has been like, hey, you know what? Let's get a 6-year-old and head of the CIA or have him do covert ops. And somewhere they're training that kid.
I mean,
it can happen. Well,
yeah, I was going to say, like, there are a lot of ambassador seats that are kind of open. It would be kind of a troll move to just put a bunch of 9-year-olds and just send them all to other countries as U.S. ambassador.
Here comes 2019, baby.
But what's crazy?
It all be the same.
What's crazy about this is one of the guys helping him is voiced by Mark Hamill. You might know him, of course, famously as the Joker. He maybe did some live action stuff too, but we don't worry about that.
I was going to say the guy who did Corvette Summer, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. He was in the video game.
The hot take. Corvette Summer, a masterpiece.
Yeah, the villain of Full Throttle, the video game. I think we all remember him from that.
Yeah.
I think I heard he might have had some other role, but man, I don't know.
I don't know. You don't want to live off of that. Those are the ones you mentioned. Those are the gems.
That's the stuff he'll be remembered for, probably. That's right. So and the episode that we saw in particular was called "Searching for Booby Vicious." Excuse me, "Searching for Booby Vicious," and it's about a chess champion who was defeated in my hometown of Detroit, and so he over 24 hours he somehow got nukes, like you do, and so only Bruno the Kid can outsmart him and cause him to not shoot his nukes at the United States. And he ends up he focused a nuke on Detroit, and I'm very happy that he saved him because I was living there at that time. So that would have been bad for me.
Your last one better not be RoboCop.
You know what? I did not put RoboCop on this list.
Detroit.
I only did Detroit-themed cartoons. No, that's not what happened. So my offering here, Bruno the Kid. Oh, also villains on this show. Really quick. You want to talk about wasted talent on a show that just Tim Curry, Bronson Pinchot, Matt Frewer, and I got her name written down here, but my handwriting is so terrible. Jen Hale. She did the voice of female Shepard in the Mass Effect games. So it's like there's all these really talented people who are playing villains to a 11-year-old kid.
Bruce Willis getting attached. Didn't he did a movie at that time? Like, wasn't it Kid or something like that? It was like something.
There was Look Who's Talking, where he plays like that.
That's right. Look Who's Talking. And he had done some Disney movie too. So
What's crazy about this Bruce Willis is that this character Bruno is based on like a character he created who's like a jazz musician, because he had a thing where he just wanted, instead of be an actor, to be a jazz musician. And so this is like
I remember those music
kid
videos
version of that character fighting international crime.
When I was must have been 10 or 11 years old, I remember the HBO special. Anytime you watch Game of Thrones, you're like, wow, it doesn't get any better than this, any more prestige than HBO. Just remember, they did a special called The Return of Bruno that was Bruce goddamn Willis living out his dream of being a blues musician.
That's what it was, yeah.
A blues musician.
You know, if there's a human being that understands the blues, it is probably not Bruce Willis on any list.
I don't think so either.
Also,
I agree.
If you want to really grate your earlobes, go to what are you putting out?
They made an animated movie of Bruno the Kid, which I did not know about until I looked it up right here.
Oh, jeez.
So we have a show, a reboot, and another rendition of it.
Yeah, and this is Bruce Willis right after making 12 Monkeys and right before making The Fifth Element. That's what happened in his career, but between wedged in there 36 episodes and apparently a movie.
That's like
Bruno the freaking Kid.
That's some karma right there. Is like
maybe that's what broke Bruce Willis, because I think after at Fifth Element, I'm pretty sure it just went downhill after that.
Well, no,
or I guess he had Sixth Sense.
Die Hard with a Vengeance came out before that, so something was going wrong already.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Google Bruce Willis Seagram's. Yeah, Bruce Willis Seagram's. He did a series of commercials for a wine cooler that are the most atrocious thing, and yet you will be singing the tune for the rest of your life.
Hey, me fellas, look here. Seagram's, golden wine cooler. Seagram's, golden wine cooler. It's wet and it's dry. Golden wine cooler. My, golden wine cooler. Me and the boys love all the time. Golden wine cooler. It's wet and it's dry.
I'm up for the challenge. I'm gonna have to look it up and see Bruce Willis.
I'll tell you right now.
Some Seagrams.
Golden wine cooler.
Is it better than Colt 40?
They are excellent.
Some Colt 45.
Well, I will trust Billy D. Williams with all my malt liquor choices.
100%. I've got no problems at all with Colt 45.
And speaking of a struggle, it is a struggle to get through an episode of Bruno the Kid.
I mean, apparently not other people, if they've made a movie and everything else, a documentary, reboot, everything else.
You can make a movie. That doesn't mean anybody's going to watch.
That's true. That is very true.
I noticed. No sequel there.
That's true. So I'll have to check that one out. That one's definitely over my head during the Bruce Willis era. So I'll have to check out Bruno for sure. Getting to the next round then on my next second one that I have here. We're going to go into the Star Wars era. This is around the time, not too long after the famous holiday special, where we got to see some animation during that time. George Lucas liked that animation, so he decided, hey, I want to take that artist and I want him to do an animation for me. I believe it was a French artist, but I can't remember his name. It was Clive A. Smith, but I don't know if that's the exact same one. But this was for the Star Wars droids, The Adventures of R2 and C-3PO. Which for me, it was, I was barely alive when it came on, but I did remember watching it for sure at certain points and just realizing, like, even as a kid and after I've seen Star Wars and things like that, knowing that maybe, I'm not sure if this should be completely tied to the franchise that everyone holds in such prestige, and especially with George Lucas at that point. I mean, I feel like he was bouncing around all over the place trying to make money wherever he could. They were trying to keep the name relevant because I believe by 85, Return of the Jedi had just come out. So they're trying to keep the name alive. So they put out Star Wars droids, The Adventures of R2 and C-3PO. They chose them because, of course, they would appeal to younger audiences, and also because they're not really part of, like, they are in every movie, but they're not integral to all the plots. So they could just, like, do whatever they wanted with them. And they kind of set all these episodes between episode 3 and Revenge of the Sith, between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So it's kind of like that little window of time we always get with Star Wars stories. They happen in between these episodes. So for me, watching the show, it's ridiculous, but the intro is pretty catchy. I don't know if you heard the intro before.
We haven't, but I did look it up, and it was written and performed by Stuart Copeland of The Police. So
now I know why it's catchy.
So
now I know why it's super catchy.
Every bleep you take, every boop you make,
the Empire's watching you.
That's right. I mean, so really, this is the true prequel.
It is.
You can have your episodes 1, 2, and 3. I'll take my droids cartoon.
Can you imagine there was a time when George Lucas was like, I don't know if this thing's got legs. I gotta, like, crank out a bunch of stuff as quickly as possible. Otherwise, people will forget Star Wars, and no one will remember it. No one will buy my merch.
Well, isn't that exactly describing the period after Phantom Menace came out? See, people forget that when that movie first came out. See, I'm old enough to remember when that movie first came out. Everybody loved it. Everybody said this was the best Star Wars movie that ever came out, and they're all going to deny it now. But I actually saw it 2 weeks after everybody else did because I had, like, work obligations and whatnot. And so all my friends, family, strangers on the street are high-fiving each other, literally high-fiving each other about Star Wars The Phantom Menace, about how finally Star Wars, they did it right. They brought it back. There's an amazing documentary. I don't know. It's like a news report. It's a news package from a local, I think, Chicago station where they interviewed people who had just gotten out of the first screening of Phantom Menace, and 19 out of 20 people are all like, this is the best, like tears, crying, like joy. And then the one guy at the end's like, I didn't think it was very good.
the one guy, I remember that.
And as it turns out, he was the only guy who was right. Because when I saw it 2 weeks later, I remember sitting in theaters and I'm just like, they're like halfway through the movie. It's just like, I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it was just like, oh no. Oh,
this isn't going to get better.
This isn't very good at all. What is wrong with literally every single person I know? So if I could just delete from the stratosphere of entertainment episodes 1, 2, and 3 and replace them with Star Wars droids, sight unseen, I've never seen the show, I just assume it's going to be better. than what we ended
Well,
up
they
getting.
tried really hard. George Lucas wanted above average, voice acting, so he basically strong-armed Anthony Daniels to voice C-3PO. He didn't want to do it.
This time you have gone too far.
He had to be convinced. He's like, I'm no mug. I wouldn't support something just because Lucasfilm was doing it. But of course, contracts and money change people's minds.
I see your point, sir.
If you can't get Anthony Daniels, you can't do this show.
Hold on. How? Yeah, you can.
You can.
You absolutely can, and I'm about to explain to you why with my next choice. But what else? What else has Anthony Daniels done?
That's what I'm saying. I've always heard Anthony Daniels has kind of held himself above everybody else, and everything else on top of that. So.
Right, which is fine. He can do that.
He got that Star Wars money. What? He don't need any. You don't need your joy.
You're right. Because by the time 85 came around, they just did 3 movies. It did the merchandise, everything. I don't know what their cut was, but he was making some money. He was doing the Comic-Cons back in the day already.
I am looking at his IMDb right now, and like a lot of British actors, he'll show up in one episode of a TV show, and he'll show up, in a different series like a year later. That's totally normal. But it's
90% Star Wars.
It's 90% Star Wars.
Exactly.
Man.
But because he doesn't have to do anything else.
Nope.
If I was an actor and I had a role like that, man, I will wear the shiny gold outfit, and I will show up at street corners singing the name if I got paid like he got paid.
I'd wake up in C-3PO pajamas every day if I was making his money.
That's what I'm saying.
So yeah, you can see that. George Lucas, of course, we've always heard that he's so protective of the brand before he sold it off and things like that. But at this point, it looked like they're just trying anything because they had this coming, and Ewoks was in development as well.
Battle for Endor.
Yeah, those classics.
Delightful.
So yeah, those are dark times for the Star Wars brand, as you could say, for the Star Wars droids, the adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO. So that's my second choice. Appreciate that. So what's next?
Jan, what you got for us?
I'd forgotten that I did in fact choose a celebrity.
We had to get it in.
It's such a weirdly specific thing, I think. I can't think of some similar situation currently. Does anybody have their own cartoon series now?
Now that Saturday morning cartoons have gone the way of the dodo and dinosaur, it's hard because there's just not there just don't exist anymore.
No, you should have a lot more of them because you have half a dozen channels creating original animated content. Like your Disneys, your Nickelodeons, your Cartoon Networks, and there should be plenty of. I'm trying to think of a pop star right now. Well, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato should have a cartoon.
That's the one you went with?
I honestly fought real hard. I couldn't think of Katy Perry. I couldn't think of Taylor Swift. I was like, blah, 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 Demi Lovato because it's similar to tomato, and I like tomatoes.
Well, tomatoes are delicious.
Tomato.
With Demi Tomato should have her own cartoon series.
On Nickelodeon, the thing is, a lot of these cartoons with the celebrities, they aired on Saturday morning when there were only 3 networks making cartoons. They needed to fill 4 or 5 hours. It started 7 in the morning, and it would go until 11 to when the football stuff would start coming on.
Exactly.
And what have you. At least on the East Coast where I'm from, And so they were just trying to absolutely anything to get some eyes. Also because they knew there were only 7 overall channels at that time, and 3 of them were showing cartoons. So this is where you had I didn't put it on my list, but the MC Hammer cartoon, Hammerman, which would have been an excellent maybe choice for this as well. Maybe in hindsight I should have chosen it. But this is where you get a lot of these other ones. So I love this cartoon. First off, I watched the show that you're about to say when it was new, and I thought it was the complete radness. We actually watched an episode of it today because we're going to do this for an upcoming podcast for what we're doing, and it doesn't maybe age the way I would have hoped that it would have.
Suspense is killing me. Let me know, which one is it?
Here's the thing: Pro Stars was about Michael Jordan, Bo Jackson, and Wayne Gretzky.
I totally forgot about that one.
Superheroes? Question mark.
Michael's prime is slam time. Pro Stars, show stars. Wayne's hot, slap shot. Bo knows where to go. Pro Stars, all
fight crime in a van or something.
They didn't have superpowers, but Bo Jackson was like literally lifting trees out of the ground and smashing tanks with
But
them.
Bo knows.
So,
Bo knows, right?
That's every other line he says
Bo
on the
knows.
show.
Bo knows.
Bo knows blank, and then he does a thing. Bo also knows blank and does
They
another
portrayed
thing.
Bo Jackson as really dumb on this show. Like, I guess somebody's got to be the straight man, but he's walking out there and he can't even talk. Like,
it's not racist. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
Because but here's the thing is that it was about these three real life human beings who would show up. I should say 2 of them would show up at the beginning and the end to do the intro. Like, hey Wayne, what's going on this episode? Well, this episode we're going underwater to fight to free some people from a terrible pirate. Well,
Bo knows pirates.
Yeah. You had those. And they obviously they shot them completely separately at completely different times. Like probably one was in Canada and one was in Florida.
Really, it doesn't come off that way, Chan. Really at all? Oh wait.
And then at the end they would answer questions from kids like, "Did you do Little League?" And Bo Jackson was like, "Yes, I was 150 pounds and 5'9" when I was age 6. So of course I was doing Little League. But the characters themselves were not played by those three.
Of course not.
Because they couldn't get those 2 to do the voices, and Michael Jordan doesn't show up at all.
But they also can't act. Let's also do that.
We did see Space Jam. We know what's up with Michael Jordan.
Yeah. And VO work is some of the most difficult acting you can do. People don't give it the credit it's due, but VO acting is real hard because you have to basically do everything with nothing to work with whatsoever. And so
let me say
guys
this.
who can't act also can't do VO.
Here's the thing. The people who actually did the voices in this cartoon
I actually don't know who that is.
also can't act.
Oh, shoot.
They were all-
They're like their cousins and people they recommended.
I guess that's why I don't know who those actors were.
Actually, no, they're pretty respected voice talent. So my guess is that that nobody cared. The voice directors were just like, hey, we've got famous people on here. Good enough. Let's move on.
But what's really great about this is the episode that I saw earlier, and I believe it was definitely a microcosm of the overall package of this 13-episode TV show, which was it opens with literally a minute, like a cartoon, as we know, 22 minutes long, right? 22 minutes, 22 and a half, somewhere in that zone. The first minute of the show is a theme song, and it's one of the worst theme songs we've heard. It's not catchy. It's not interesting.
They're trying to do "We Will Rock You," but it's "We Are Pro Stars."
Oh wow, they
terrible.
didn't even try.
And then they do and then they do a minute of Wayne Gretzky and Bo talking to each other, like, through the magic of television. No cartoons have happened yet. And then they do the episode, which is 16 minutes long, or, a fraction of what a normal animated piece would be. And then they end it with letters from the kids. Hi, I'm Wayne Gretzky sitting on a stoop. I'm going to talk to you about
this
drugs.
sounds like a ton of filler.
It's crazy. Yes, it's all filler. So there's no money being put into this whatsoever.
I mean, you call it filler, but this is, I'm sure, what the kids, the sports kids, the Detroit kids.
I was one of
wanted.
those kids.
Yeah,
and I did want it, and I love it still. It's not as good as I remember.
Don't call them out like they were trying to cheat people. That's what they wanted, and if they could have just had 22 minutes of Wayne Gretzky going like, I don't know, vanilla, with peanuts, then yes, that's exactly what they would have done. But
it's literally just Wayne Gretzky ordering lunch. That's like 6 minutes of the episode. Him asking questions of the waiter. That's it. And here's the deal. This is the thing. They tried to hit all 4 major sports, but they tried to do it with only 3, people, which is great because Bo Jackson, of course, played both football and baseball at a very, very high level. And Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky were the most talented athletes in their sports. So it worked out really, really well that those guys were, and all those guys were happy to be on television.
Of course.
As much as possible.
Yeah, the thing is that this Pro Stars name had been around for a little while because you can also search for Pro Stars on YouTube, and you will find that there was a cereal called Pro Stars that was also hawked by Wayne Gretzky.
Oh, weird. Weird that they would tie it in like that.
Here's the thing.
What a coincidence.
The fun thing about that is like no sugar added. So, you can figure it's like a healthy sort of cereal for kids. It was sweetened with aspartame.
Aspartame.
NutraSweet.
Yeah. The equivalent, basically.
It's diet cereal. If you just can't get enough of that crappy aftertaste,
how dare you?
Your
Diet
Coke
Coke is
Zero.
delicious.
You can now get it in cereal form.
Now the real debate, the real debate starts here.
Oh yeah, have you done an episode about cereals, novelty cereals?
I
yet?
have. I've touched on, not a dedicated one, but I've touched on it. But it's like cartoons. There's so many to get into.
There's so many,
and they're still making them today.
Come on, man! Nintendo cereal that had Legend of Zelda on one side and then Super Mario on the other side with a split right down the middle.
I mean, that alone.
So you had literally 2 openings to this cereal box. It was great.
It was. It seriously was.
They should have made this Pro Stars cereal split into 3, and one of them had little baseball bats. One of them had little hockey sticks,
little footballs.
Because that was part of their gimmick. In addition to being superheroes, they had like a Q type person who would give them little gadgets that were specific to their thing. Wayne Gretzky had a watch that shot out little pellets of stuff, but it shot it out by having a little hockey stick pop out of it and knock the little pellet out. And Bo Jackson had a little device, and when he pressed it, turned into an entire baseball bat that he would throw at people.
He would beat people to death with.
Yes,
that was and Wayne Gretzky had like rocket skates because his big thing is he's on ice all the time. But I don't know if you fought crime. Most of it doesn't happen on the ice. Unless I guess you live in Canada.
Also, the Air Jordans, rocket powered Air
Jordans. This is the stuff I wanted to see as a kid because I wanted all this stuff. Are you kidding me? I want rocket skates now.
In the intro animation, if you watch it, there's a fire. There's a little girl trapped on a fire escape. She can't get out. Here comes Michael Jordan leaping because he's a basketball player. Grabs the kid, jumps off, and his rocket shoes power up, and he goes flying off into the air with the little girl, but he's still doing his Michael Jordan tongue wagging thing with the little girl who's in his arms right in front of him, and it just
that's not
creepy.
Weird or anything.
It looks super creepy.
And he didn't try to dunk her though.
You know what? It cut immediately.
It cut. We don't actually know what happened to that.
She was not saved, actually.
It was, in retrospect, maybe not the best plan.
So Pro Stars, another gem, especially like that. That sounds like they got a lot of bad ideas were greenlit for that one.
They must have made a ton of money off of that.
Oh, yeah,
on paper, it sounds terrible, but you can see why it was greenlit. There is appeal there.
Oh,
that
all
is the
three.
thing that absolutely kids who are into sports would watch.
Stupid children.
I mean, I liked it.
We fell for the trap. We fell for it. Oh. All right. Well, Ray, what's your next one?
Yeah. Going back to the 90s for this one. It's a time 80s gets a lot of credit for having really whacked out cartoons, but I think the 90s in that extreme era, people old enough to remember, everything in the early to mid 90s, it started towards the end, it started tailing out a little bit, but everything had to be extreme. This is where Surge Cola comes from, and they put an X in front of absolutely everything.
Even in this Pro Stars cartoon, all of them had these gargantuan shoulders and teeny tiny waists.
And this is the age
everybody looked like
Pogs. This is everything was just extreme, no matter how goofy it was. So from that era, I bring you 1993 to 1996's Biker Mice from Mars.
Biker Mice from Mars. Biker Mice from Mars. Biker Mice from
Mars. Which is another show we've done on our podcast. 3 seasons, 65 episodes were made of Biker Mice from Mars.
It made it that long.
Oh, yeah. No, it's huge. And it's a thing that nobody really remembers. Those who remember really remember because it leaves an indelible mark, much like, torture leaves.
Long-lasting for certain reasons.
Post-traumatic biker mice disorder.
That's it. So in this alternate timeline, follow me here. Mars is a place of alien life, and a race of sentient mice, of course, live on there who are extreme and love motorcycling because that's just what you do on Mars is you ride it all around. And there's an evil race, the Plutarchians, who are led on Earth by a guy named Lawrence Limburger, but this might actually be Tim Curry again as the villain. Main guy. They come and they invade the biker mice and they enslave all of the biker mice. except a few of them escape. Our heroes, Throttle, Moto, and Vinny. And you want to talk about voice actors on this show. The main character, Throttle, is done by Rob Paulson, who's one of the most famous voiceover guys in the world. Yakko on Animaniacs and like every other cartoon ever.
Moto actually did the voice of Michael Jordan in Pro Stars.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
So he was famous-ish. And then Vinny is done by Ian Ziering, most famous nowadays of the Sharknado franchise. He's the star of all
A-lister.
the Sharknado movies. At the time, he was doing Beverly Hills 90210, which is probably a bigger deal. Not now, but back then.
Now he's doing Worst Cooks in America.
He's doing Worst Cooks in America.
Pretty great.
So, but essentially, these biker mice, they escape from the Plutarchians, and they crash land on Earth, literally crash into their version of Wrigley Field in Chicago. And the biker mice live in inner city Chicago, fighting crime on their motorcycles. Yeah. and so literally, yeah, they're going around the Midwest. They're fighting crime, and they're trying to essentially do enough good things that they can challenge the Plutarchians to release their race of people on the planet Mars, which the people of this planet don't even know exist, with life on it.
So what you're saying is they're basically the Harriet Tubmans of the biker mice world.
I mean, I'm not saying
underground mice railroad. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's hard to have an underground railroad, in secret when you're riding around on giant Harleys that make rip-roaring noise everywhere you go.
I only just now realized that the girl character in the cartoon,
yes,
her name is Charlie.
Charlie, yes.
Her last name is Davidson. Charlie Davidson.
Oh, I get it.
I just now realized
I did not realize that either. And my favorite thing is that Charlie was there at the Wrigley Field, Quigley Field, I think it was called on their thing. And she basically takes them in and says, hey, you're biker mice from Mars. You're 6 foot tall mice who talk and are extreme and have great, bad attitudes. Because you got to have that rude dog.
Of course.
Thing.
Extreme.
And they treat her like absolute human garbage for the entirety of she's basically their mom. And so they essentially, even though she is everything, she is, they're relying on her for literally every single thing in their lives. They treat her like poop. And they're essentially like, oh, stop nagging us. We want to ride our motorcycles and go to the beach and windsurf and play volleyball.
All women characters from the 80s and 90s cartoons are that. So much so.
The nagging mom, the nagging wife, yeah.
The Q character in Pro Stars, you want to know what her name is? Her name is Mom. It is literally Mom.
Literally
Mother,
Mom.
Madre, any form.
And to give you an example of the plot synopsis of where we're going with this great Biker Mice from Mars show, the episode we watched from season 2 is called Lake Michigan. Michigan.
Sure, the puns don't stop there.
Lawrence Limburger is an alien Plutarchian who wears a human suit, who is like a giant businessman. Think like Donald Trump of Chicago, basically. He kind of looks a little bit like him, too, in hindsight. It might have been the archetype they were going for in the 90s. And so he has other alien fish people who are wearing human suits. And so he decides we need to get a bunch of water. So where can we possibly get a bunch of water to send to Mars? Oh, let's just drain Lake Michigan and put it in a low hovering orbit on a giant space station that's essentially like a tank that they just pour the water in the top of. So he teleports all the water from Lake Michigan into this low orbit space station with the eventual intention of sending it to Mars to make a lot of money.
I just realized that you did manage to work Detroit back into this show.
Again, he swindled us.
Oh, it was Michigan. Oh, that's got a Detroit connection. I had no idea. Hey, I didn't pick RoboCop the cartoon as my third one.
We're still not over. It's still not over.
I mean, I am not saying the third one isn't also Detroit related, but don't worry about that. Anyway.
I did just notice that two of the characters, Greasepit was voiced by Brad Garrett, and Carbine, who is the lover of Throttle, is voiced by Leah Remini. That's two.
Leah
Everybody
Remini,
loves
King of Queens.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute, is that?
Yeah,
she's
the
her.
one who broke away from Scientology.
I was thinking of Everybody Loves Raymond because Brad Garrett was on that. Both those two shows are indistinguishable to me.
Not really.
I cannot tell the difference between them.
One has a fat guy and one has a less fat guy.
That's
pretty much the difference.
Don't deserve the super hot wives that they have.
That's everyone on television, Chan.
You're
just gonna have to accept it, or be mad.
Yeah.
Actually, you brought up Brad Garrett. Another show I could have chosen. I thought about choosing it, but I didn't. It was Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
I am a real American. Fight for rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
Ah, yes, I saw that and I thought about it too.
Because it's got all these famous 80s wrestlers, because you have a natural delineation of good guys and bad guy wrestlers. But what was amazing about it is because these guys were on tour on their wrestling schedules, all they could do was little like shoot vignettes and you know and little shoots and stuff of their character work, but they couldn't actually like be part of the cartoon. So Brad Garrett, you know, the 6'8" guy from Everybody Loves Raymond, Raymond, is the voice of Hulk Hogan in his first role, really of any measure whatsoever. He played Hulk Hogan in Rock and Wrestling, but I did not choose that one. That's a good one.
That's unfortunate, but I did like the other choices as well. So we're here to the last ones. I've gone to my last one here. It took a long time to narrow it down because like we talked about so many of these crazy cartoons. This one is more of a it got to the point where all these animation studios knew what kids were watching, what the trends were. So we got the Batman and Robin basically of animation. The whole like, let's just do the case study and get everybody's thoughts into this one cartoon. So this is how we got Denver the Last Dinosaur. Yes, this one nationally syndicated from '88, reruns up until 1990. Revolves around Denver, the last dinosaur, who's released from his egg by a group of California teens, and they basically they teach him how to skateboard. They teach him how to be a rad dude in California. He's a dinosaur. There are so many dinosaur shows at this point in time. It aired after Land Before Time cartoon show. So like we had cartoons, we had skateboarding, and for some reason everybody was all obsessed with California too in all their animations. Everything seemed to always happen in California. So this was like just a hodgepodge of all these things they knew kids loved. And also it is another catchy theme that every time I hear this name, Denver, the last dinosaur, just gets stuck in my head every time. And yeah, it's just one of those, it's like I knew as a kid, I'm like, look, okay, I know this show has skateboarding. I know they have 8 dinosaur shows, so there's just spoon feeding me what they think I'd like at this point. So as a child, even I knew that Denver, the Last Dinosaur was not that great of a show. But you know, I did watch it. The kids they'd show Denver around. They try to keep him from being caught and taken in and chopped up by like these scientists and things like that. So the adventures revolved around that, but mainly just Denver trying to fit in and wearing like Raphael like costumes everywhere to try to fit in. So the show itself, just like I said, it's just nothing but studios thinking they know what kids wanted to see and put it all in one cartoon.
Yeah, it's as if a focus group was responsible for all the writing of the show.
Exactly. That's what I was focused. This is clearly a focus group only show.
I will say this. I lived across the street from the La Brea tar pits where Denver was found. Never once did I meet a skateboarding dinosaur.
You weren't looking hard
enough. I lived
enough.
there for 3 years. I looked. God damn you, I looked.
Chan, you didn't live there between 1988 and 1990. I think that was where the problem was.
I see.
That was the issue.
The dinosaurs had sort of dried up by the time I got there.
There's something intrinsically very sad about the title of this show. Like Denver the Last Dinosaur. Literally in the show's title, it tells you he's going to die alone.
That's no mom, no sister, no brother. Like, yeah, that's sad.
I mean, if I was him, I'd be, skateboarding and popping energy drinks because literally you have nothing to live for at that point.
Oh,
anyway,
no, hold on.
I'm kind of upset.
If I understand Jurassic Park correctly, he could just have sex with a frog and then have more babies, right?
Or is it a mosquito?
Right? Is it what? Okay.
Could he have sex with a mosquito?
Could be. I didn't pay real close attention. Maybe it's a three-way.
Maybe it's a menage a trois for sure.
Gotcha.
Maybe that's Jurassic World 2's plot.
Here's the thing. You got to keep the mosquito away from the frog. Otherwise, you're just back down to the one-on-one sex.
Or somebody's going to feel left out.
Right?
Yeah, it's that weird situation in the threesome where, the two people look at each other and you're like, oh, one of them's going to devour the other one whole and we'll be back to regular sex again. Mm-hmm. We don't want that.
No.
I mean, we've all been there. Am I right?
That's what I'm saying. But how do they even come up with a name? If they're going to set it in California, why is it Denver, the Last Dinosaur? Like, why couldn't it have been like...
See, when I think of Denver's, I mean, I won obviously the city, the Mile High City, but also I think of Denver omelets, and the fact that he came from an egg to me is a little upsetting. Also,
Oh, nice.
There's the connection. There it is. Somebody was
my
hungry
God.
when titling this show.
I don't know how we make this happen, but I want to make an egg that also has diced peppers and ham in it. So when you crack it open, you just crack it right into the pan.
Oh, I
and
like
you
that
have
idea.
instant
So you just
Denver
gotta
omelet.
feed the chickens all kinds of peppers and ham and everything throughout the whole time. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Exactly.
I like GMOs. Let's do it. GMO that.
Boom.
Just make it happen.
$1 million idea right there. So,
I ended up choosing one that I never actually watched. I was just looking through. I was like, there is just an ungodly long list of just insane cartoons out there, and hopefully we're going to get to a lot of them on our show eventually. Some of them I passed by, and some of them I just stopped and like, the hell is this? Paw Paws, also known as Paw Paw Bears.
Never heard of this one.
Deep, deep in the forest, far away from everywhere, with a bunch of mighty little critters, they're called the Paw Paw Bears. These are brave and fearless Paw Paws, as everyone well knows. When you get in trouble, and this goes double, you call the Paw Paw Bear.
Paw Paw Bears. Paw Paw Bears. Paw Paw Bears.
wow, no, me neither.
This is amazing. Okay, here's the pitch. Care Bears, but Native Americans.
Oh my!
All the bears, and I'm like, this is 1985. This is not going to go well. Like all of the girl bears have the ponytails.
Oh boy!
And the boy bears. None of them had the big.
I would say
feather
headdresses all over the
but
place, or no? They didn't go that far.
They had a giant totem pole that was magical.
Because of course they did.
And the lead girl, Princess Paw Paw, had a Mystic Moonstone that I believe every episode pretty much they would activate it. It was like a wooden Voltron because it was there was a totem tortoise at the bottom, and then a totem bear on top of that, and then a totem eagle on top of that. And when she activated it to defeat the evil Dark Paws, because
Whoa.
that's what yeah. I'm not going to say that they got a problem with African American.
This is not a commentary of any sort.
But I'm also not saying that it isn't.
Oh man, we'd be fine if it wasn't for those dark paws who keep coming over here.
Someone put those dark paws in their place.
With their hip hop music.
She activates this thing, and then they go off like, because they're giant. They're giant compared to these tiny talking bears. So it's basically like a friggin' Voltron that would grab the bad guys and like fling them off like the one I saw. The bird grabbed these two bears, flew them like a mile in the air, and then just dropped them. And then we cut away.
That's it.
Like, what the hell?
Just
you just murdered two adorable
animation murder. You just witnessed it.
Oh, there's the dog. His name is Papooch because it sounds like Papoose. There's Medicine Paw and Laughing Paw.
So they're like
and
Smurfs. They all have like
it.
the word paw in their name.
Yeah. There's Trembly Paw, the one who has Parkinson's.
Trembly Paw. What the F?
Princess Paw has a flying horse because they're like, we can't just have Care Bears. How about Care Bears meets My Little Pony? And so Flying Cloud.
I like this. There's one of them's name is Nice Paw, who's a former Mino who used to be called Nasty Paw.
They
but
call
then
him
he got
Mino.
then he got over it, so now he's
People
Nice
weren't
Paw.
even trying.
The most amazing thing is that it is not as racist as it could have been. It was so broad that they about as close as they got to genuine Native American culture was like sort of that totem pole and like sort of some of the hairstyles. Other than that, it was just sort of like, hey, we're talking bears and we live with the in one with the earth. And we've got some like vague magical powers. It's mildly shamanistic, but not really specific enough that you could nail it down to even that.
Well, what's crazy is that apparently in the finale of this show, they just opened a casino.
yeah, that was weird.
They're fighting for their land in a casino is taken on.
Mm-hmm. It's so weird.
Yeah, someone tries to build a pipeline on their land.
Yeah, but then they get attacked when they protested, obviously, and then they got attacked by police. It was really a crazy finale for this show, obviously.
Yeah, it was a turn, but it was welcome.
It was a welcome choice, definitely. Well, that one sounds interesting to say the least, and like you said, it sounds like it could have got way more racist, but they somehow kept it tame.
I think they just weren't trying.
They just weren't trying harder to be racist.
What's crazy is Paw Paws got 21 episodes, which is more than most of the other shows that we are talking about today.
It's Hanna-Barbera, and the animation was surprisingly good.
Oh,
so
no. I don't want any part of it to be.
Don't give me that Babar shit.
Oh, God bless America. Okay, well, I got my last one here. I saved my favorite one for last, and this would be Chan's least favorite one of the list. When I found out that this show existed, I was already in love. I was already in joy. And then as we started to break it down and learn more about the show, it's one of those shows that just kept giving and giving and getting better and better. We've done the Christmas episode of this show on the podcast. Knowing us at the podcast, quick plug. Rubik the Amazing Cube.
On a mysterious night, Rubik Cube appeared, bringing happiness. Rubik Cube has changed everything in our lives. He's colorful, magical, lovable. Rubik, he's our friend. Rubik, the Amazing Cube.
Hello, my name is Rubik.
What?
Rubik's Cube was a toy. For those, I'm sure everybody's kind of familiar with Rubik's Cube. It was very, 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 very popular in the 80s, where it was
back before the internet. We had nothing to do but focus on stupid toys and beating each other to death to get them. That's the 80s in a nutshell.
That hasn't changed, really. I mean, have you tried to go for a Nintendo Switch on
good
launch
Lord.
day? Oof. Just saying. But Rubik's Cube was like, it had 9 squares on each of the 6 sides, and you spun it in any which way, and you were trying to make all the colors match up on one side. So you had red stickers on one side and green stickers on the other side. I could never figure this crap out ever in my entire life. I know people that would be like, hey, man, like 30 seconds later, boop, 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 and they're done. They've solved the whole thing.
You've
It's
seen
insane.
the video of the kid juggling, right?
And he's doing a Rubik's Cube while he's juggling it?
They give him 3 mixed up Rubik's Cubes. He juggles them, and in the space of 5.5 minutes, juggles and solves them simultaneously.
Like,
it's insane.
I've never considered putting a hit out on somebody before, but
I'll throw down on that hit for sure.
It is terrifying.
Well, they decided a tie-in cartoon was the obvious way to go with this cube toy that doesn't really do much of anything. So they made 13 episodes. This is a popular theme with a lot of these. 1 season, 13 episodes. Rubik is a anthropomorphic cube with a face on it and legs, and it speaks in a really, really jacked up voice, like high-pitched and slow and creepy. And the story goes, as we learn in the opening credits, he falls out of the stagecoach of an evil magician. This is set in the modern era. There just happens to be an evil magician riding through the forest in a stagecoach. He bumps off the back of it, and he's found by 3 Latino children. So this is an actual and to my knowledge, this is one of the first honest portrayals of a Latino family in cartoons, like in maybe even in media. Like, this was just not a thing that was done in the year 83 to 84. And they don't portray them in a racist way at all. Yeah. It's maybe it's one of the most genuine portrayals. They're portrayed as a family who also happens to be their names are Carlos, Lisa, and Ronaldo Rodriguez. Like, they're not shying away from it at all. They don't look white like all the other kids and all the other shows do. And one of the things that was genuinely like appreciated by me about this terrible, terrible show is they just made a choice to do a loving portrayal of a Latino family.
I'll take it. I'm all for it.
Along with what might be a child molesting toy.
Yeah, don't worry about that part. Yeah.
It's so creepy.
And what's great about it is the voice of Rubik, and I don't think we really got into this on a show. It was done by Ron Palillo, if I'm pronouncing that right, who did the voice, who's Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter. A pretty famous kind of character
the only 2
part.
roles that he has then.
Yeah, and so they did it by he actually when he recorded all his voices as Rubik, I read this, he actually recorded them very, very slowly, and then they sped it up to get this crazy "my name is Rubik" kind of voice when they did it. And that's why every single one of his line
God
reads
damn
sounds
you, Alvin and the Chipmunks.
bizarre.
You've ruined so many things for so many people.
And what's great is the theme song. Now, we talk about bad theme songs, some of the others. This one was so good. And Rubik, he's our friend. And it was done, and I didn't know this either, by Menudo.
Yeah.
By Latino supergroup
Ricky Martin has something to do with this?
I think Ricky Martin either was right there. It was 83, 84, so I don't think he was quite a member of the team yet, but he might have been. He might. But here's the deal. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of the cast members of Menudo. It feels a little early for Ricky Martin, but I want him to be a part of it. That's for sure. And the episode that we watched was our Rubik's Christmas. So, of course, they go to Hawaii, and he ends up like almost falling in a volcano or something. Like what happens every time you go to Hawaii.
Yeah, in the volcano, there's a ghost, and
because of course there is.
Yeah.
We all know volcano ghost is a popular tripe in most media.
It's just they keep going to that well every time.
Yeah, and so Rubik essentially, like, he could morph himself into anything. I think in this he becomes like a forklift at some point. He can fly, I guess, if he wants to, which is very helpful. He becomes like an elevator and takes the kids to the top of the volcano. And sometimes when he's like bumped or hit, like he'll unscramble. So, you know, when he's fully put together with all the right colors and the right sides, then he grows a face and legs and can talk and be their friend. But when he's bumped and scrambled, he like loses his powers, and all you hear is this creepy voice of, "Help me!"
He's like the Towley of the 80s.
Yeah. Except it haunts your nightmares to hear him, like, because you know he's alive and sentient and trapped inside his form. And so the kids, usually it's a plot point of the show, the kids have to quickly assemble Rubik's Cube, which takes longer based on how, you know, dire the situation is. Sometimes they're like, boop, boop, and we're done. Like this kid, you brought up the video
My
here.
God, maybe this kid was actually, he's Chinese, so he wasn't actually on the show. But he should have been.
Yeah, he should have been. Oh my goodness. And so they would have to solve Rubik's Cube so that way he could like turn himself into a bulldozer or something to save the day. And as the plot progressed, the evil magician was, of course, trying to get the magic Rubik's Cube back for nefarious purposes. And the kid's job was to, you know, hide out
because he's a gypsy, and gypsies are evil. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say gypsy, right? The Romani are evil.
Romani now.
Yeah.
But no, Romani totally
sounds
evil.
completely logical for a cartoon based on the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. You could, once you start from there, you could just go anywhere and it would make total sense. Like, well, we've already accepted this crazy ass bullshit.
Well,
so that was my third offering, was Rubik the Amazing Cube. I want to do more episodes of Rubik the Amazing Cube for the show, but somebody else on the show keeps vetoing it and won't let me. You know, I don't want to name names, but it really could have been anybody.
Amazing Cube.
I highly recommend all the people at home go check out, give it 3 minutes of an episode of Rubik the Amazing Cube, and you'll get the gist of what it is. It's fantastic.
I think it's already up there for the most obscure that we're going to try to narrow down. We're going to try to do some narrowing down to these shows, but before we do that, we're going to get into the Twitter polls and the Twitter shout-outs because we hit up people online, say, what do you think? What are your favorite obscure shows that nobody remembers? And whenever you bring it up, of course, Twitter polls only have 4 choices, so I had to pick some random ones. So we had the Potato Head Kids, Richie Rich, and Scrappy Doo.
Yep. Almost. Okay.
That's pretty mainstream. I don't think I'd go with that one personally. Richie Rich was like a huge deal back in the day, and Scrappy Doo.
It was the combination at that point.
Oh, I take it all back. That's fantastic.
And then we got Camp Candy was on there, and then Reboot. Our Canadian friends up north got to enjoy that one.
We've done Reboot.
Of that. Yes, we've done an episode of that, and it is horrifying. The thing is, Reboot was a computer animated show back when you didn't do animated shows, and there were some clever parts to it, but it's just so rough to look at. It's real. It upset my eyes to watch it, like that old school 90s CGI computer animated.
It's
stuff.
hard to hold up some of those episodes, but it for some reason held up with everybody else because they got 40% of the votes. So it took on.
There it is.
Wow.
No, I appreciated Reboot because the episode we saw was from like I think 95, 96, and in that episode they actually did a shout out vignette to Bruce Campbell and Army of Darkness. They actually in this Canadian kids weird show they put an Army of Darkness kind of character boost in there, and that made me more happy I think than and they didn't do a very good job with it, but the fact that they tried it all, that's what really
got
brought
E for
me a
effort
lot of
from
joy.
you. So that's awesome. Well, yeah, Reboot. What were you gonna say?
Why doesn't Bruce Campbell have his
You know it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Well, now that Ash vs. Evil Dead has been canceled after 3 seasons,
It's true.
RIP.
He's stepping away, so he's got to have a different character to step into. But like I was saying with Reboot, I actually had Bob, the guy, Michael Benier, who played the character Bob on the podcast, and he too was just like, you know, he knew that it was a big deal in Canada, but he knew it had like a slow start in the U.S. and that it came on a little bit late, and people were still into the more traditional animated, so it took people longer to come around to the computer animated. But it just he's still surprised by the amount of people who are just like keep coming back to him about that show because he's a character actor. He's been in so many different things, but Reboot is the one people keep coming back to him for.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think the thing that holds me back from Reboot is, just looking at it. Like, it's just that stuff didn't age very well. I mean, we also talk about Transformers Beast Wars, which is another show in the same vein that a lot of people just love. And I felt gross. I felt sick watching it just because there's no depth of field in any of that stuff. It's really hard to get your bearings on what's happening on screen. And so I really like it's unpleasant to watch.
It's just like the regular Transformers movies. They are really hard to watch and to witness.
Well, those are hard to watch for very different reasons.
No, also the same reasons. They're just visually unappealing and hurt.
Exactly. So Reboot was the big winner of the Twitter poll. We got a bunch of Twitter shout outs. So we're going to rifle through these with all the people who gave us some love. So we got Super Movie Bros at Super Movie Pod. They said, Life with Louie. There's another celebrity who got a cartoon show.
Hey, there's another show that we did that really upset Channel Live.
Ooh,
really upset him a lot.
That got so creepy.
It's basically Louis Anderson as both the child and the father, except the going through line of the entire show is the dad beats the hell out of the kids all the time when he's drunk, which is all the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the idea, his pitch was, what if I were a serial killer as a 6-year-old?
That great premise.
Yeah. That was a shockingly good Louis Anderson impression.
That was awesome.
Wow. I didn't know. I don't want to credit you too much, but my God, I loved it.
Somehow it made it.
Yeah, that show is great. That show is great. And great.
Exactly. It's one to return to, but maybe not for the entire season. But thanks for that one, Super Movie Podcast or Super Movie Bros. We got Becky at Music Gamer 460. She says, "Oh, Disney Adventures of the Gummy Bears."
Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. High adventure that's beyond compare. They are the Gummy Bears.
Gummy Bears, again, we've done an episode of the... Man, I'm loving all these suggestions because it's they're all fresh in my mind because these are all episodes we've done fairly recently. The Gummy Bears is animation is amazing. Yeah. The opposite of what I said about Reboot, I would say about Gummy Bears. Disney put money to make this show work, make this show look good. Now, the plots, the characters... come up a little bit empty at times.
The one we watched was wonky, and it was like the second to last episode.
They're done with it.
They were already moving on to something else.
Yeah, in the episode we saw, which was the finale, was shocking because it didn't really end on any kind of good note or anything. It just sort of ends. They don't even drink the gummy berry juice in the episode that we watched, which is in the theme song is the one thing that they do. That's the one thing they do. No, not in this episode. Instead, they're going through like a most dangerous game, kind of like Gauntlet. You'll become a man if you finish this.
They're like, nobody's watching this. Do whatever you want.
Nobody cared. It was really dark.
For Gummy Bears, it took some dark turns for sure. So yeah, thanks, Becky. Next one we got Alexander at Most Always Alex says Mummies Alive.
Alive, another show that we've done fairly recently. Oh, Mummies Alive. Now, the Mummies Alive is great because it's the spirits of ancient Egyptian mummies in a modern day setting, trying to just blend in as humans, even though they're wearing bandages and, smell terribly. We believe they must smell just
that headgear is not getting you
dead.
through airport security very quickly.
Right? Mummies Alive. They also, like the episode we saw, they drove monster trucks in a race.
That turned into actual monsters.
Because there was a forest creature that was that woke up. The classic tale of the Godzilla tale of the forest monster wakes up because development and industrialization kind of pulls him out of his zone because it's being too loud. And he's decided, things are too loud. I'm going to shoot things that make inanimate objects come alive and attack people. And of course, because all these monster trucks had like scary animal, like shark faces and stuff on there, they all came alive as monsters and attacked our heroes. It was a fabulous episode. Mummies Alive.
It sounds like it had way more to it than just like standard mummy stuff. So definitely one to get back to for sure. Matthew M at 3CTFA Philly 8 says the Tales from the Crypt Keeper animation one.
From the Crypt Keeper.
I never even knew that existed.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know. That one I don't know about. That sounds exciting.
That seems like a terrible idea.
What do you mean? Like RoboCop was a good idea.
Like, let's take a slasher film and make it into a cartoon for children.
Well, as I'm saying, like RoboCop is one of the most violent movies of all time, and they turned it into a kids show where nobody dies or really even gets hurt.
Yeah, but you can sell toys to that. What are you going to sell for Tales from the Crypt?
Yeah, but like Chucky is like a horror movie that got popular with children for reasons I can't quite explain.
No,
Child's Play Chucky is like Five Nights at Freddy's now is the video game with the animatronic like Chuck E. Cheese monster toys, the creatures, the 6-foot creatures that play in the band come alive and murder you, and kids are all over the place in elementary school wearing Five Nights at Freddy's t-shirt and swag. Like absolutely horror icons become a big thing for kids, even if it's not for them.
The Crypt Keeper creeped me out. I don't know if I could watch the animation style either.
He had great puns, though. I think you and him are kindred spirits because he was a punster.
Well, thanks for that one. Next one, we got Kim Jacques at Kimothy80. She says, Snorks.
Come along with the Snorks. Swim along with the Snorks. So much to see waiting for you and me. Have some fun with the Snorks.
Snorks went right with Smurfs. They go hand in hand. It's basically the exact same thing. Snorks is just if Smurfs were underwater and had the nozzles on their heads. Snorkels. Yeah, and that's why they're Snorks. And there's really nothing interesting about that show whatsoever. They're not trying to say anything. They're not trying to do anything. They're just like, hey, it's
just a carbon
Smurfs
copy.
but underwater.
Yeah, of course. So
let's make 100 episodes or whatever it was. I watched it.
Yeah, definitely caught my eyes a few times, but not long lasting. We got the Halloween podcast at the Halloween Pod. You didn't mention the Where's Waldo cartoon. I remember that one. I don't either. I already had a hard enough time with the damn books.
I was looking for it and I couldn't. Yeah.
So yeah, I had a hard enough time with the books. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna be going with the cartoon. So sorry on that one. Channel Surfing Pod. I loved Camp Candy, but no one remembers it. You gotta get. We talked about that one earlier. It's just, I think more for the intro. You gotta get John Candy singing, and you'll get to enjoy that one. What was that?
You know what I was gonna say? You know what I say to the person who said that? Cool people remember it. It's in our hearts.
Into the Portal podcast at Into the Portal 1. People obviously know this one, but I absolutely love the original Transformers cartoons. Also, I think it was called Adventures of Flash Gordon Sci-Fi Cartoon Quest. All the best shows growing up. Oh yeah,
good stuff. Flash Gordon was a classic, and obviously Transformers is Transformers. What even needs to be said?
Nothing more needs to be said. We got a couple more here. We got Beefurg at D3LVUS at Bump in the Night.
I'm a wild green guy living under the bed. I got a little sock before you turn your head. Like a boat to light. Make your heart jump. My name is Mr. Bumpy. I go bump, bump, bump. Yeah, bump. Everybody bump.
I watched that one for sure. That one was a Saturday morning classic for me. It was like It was the
Night?
claymation
Like a
type
scary
of show, like kind of when Saturday mornings start taking on that sort of claymation type of. It was like a little green monster. Like he was under your bed. They played like into your clothes and shit. I just remember I remember watching it vaguely, but it wasn't a show that I got crazy into. I just remember seeing the promotions all the time on Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it right now. I remember that character appearing in like was that ABC? Yeah, it was ABC. Or appearing in the like in between like things like after these messages, we'll be right back. I remember that. Oh wow, I do not remember the show.
Like I'm telling you, I'm probably more remembering the bumpers than I am the actual show, so I can't get into more than that. But now we have Evan Monday at I Don't Like Monday, Bots Master. I think it was originally French, but it aired in Canada and had a killer rap opening.
You know, the planet is in a jam, a diabolical plan of only one man. A paradigm and international funk, and an army of 3 A's or he beat the jump.
Yeah, invaders, you forgot about the boys and the guy who made us. Zim Zoolander, master of boy spots.
We're on the mind the plot. We're sports boys, and we like making noise.
You guys know Bots Master?
Well, if it's French and aired in Canada with a rap opening, you'd think I'd know it. But having grown up not in Canada or France, that one eludes me as well. I honestly, it sounds already.
Yeah,
sounds
I gotta check out
I'm already on board.
Killer French Canadian rap. We have to see what it's all about. We got Boner Vivant at Doug Tilley. It says Kissy Fur aired on NBC from '86 to '90 was quite a big deal at the time. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I remember that. It was another one of those like kind of like Mon-Chi-Chi. They're just like adorable animals.
Oh, like the Get Along Gang.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can't go
like
wrong
a bunch of Pepe Le Pews running around. All right, now we got Old School Evil at Old School Evil. My vote is for RoboForce. Do you guys remember RoboForce?
Wow.
Is that maybe another Canadian one? Possibly.
That doesn't ring
We're
any bells.
looking it up real quick. RoboForce is not. I mean, again, it sounds amazing to me. If you have a bunch of robots who injure people with force,
I have a vague recollection.
I'm sure it aired right after
Transformers. Of the toys. It was based on some toys because they had a little suction cup at the bottom of it, and Arms did some stuff. I did not know there was a cartoon. The leader's name is Max Steel.
Max Steel, because of course it is.
Cop Torch, Enforcer, Sentinel. Okay, yeah.
Wrecker, Blazer.
Sounds terrible, and I would have loved it as a child.
Yeah, I'm making notes right here.
All right, well, the RoboForce.
These are all shows we got to check out.
On there. Now, last two we have here is ATGNA Podcast. Yeah. ATGNA Podcast says, I remember watching Camp Candy on Saturday mornings, as us all cool kids do. And the last one, Twist Isle Productions at Twist Isle, David the Gnome.
Trolls and lizards and fairy kings, birds that talk and fish that sing. And if your heart is true, then you will find them too. In every wish and dream and happy home, you will find the kingdom of the gnome.
David the Gnome.
For someone to drop this awesome one.
Yeah. No, that's the father from what was that show?
Happy Days. Good Happy Days, yeah.
Yeah. And he plays a gnome. That aired in a tandem with a show called Maya the Bee, which also maybe would have been an excellent choice for this podcast that I thought about it. So they're Japanese shows, which means that they got the flapping mouth syndrome with all of the different characters. And Tom Boswell's David the Gnome living in the forest having adventures.
Ray, it was Spanish.
Oh, is it Spanish? Here's the
deal.
deal.
Spain, Spanish and Japanese.
Well, here's the deal. The animation was the same.
David El Nomo.
Sure. David El Nomo. Oh, okay.
I remember he rode his fox around. They had the goblins or the whatever the three, basically like Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit. They had the orcs or whatever running around. I just remember just loving the intro. I remember recognizing Tom Boswell's voice and just loved the little nose kisses they did. It just reminded me of like being at my babysitters and watching those shows before going to school, that kind of stuff. So David the Gnome definitely, and it was on like Nick Jr. back in the day.
Nickelodeon,
so,
yeah. It was on Nickelodeon. I want to say it was on at like 2:30, which means you'd catch the last 10 minutes when you came home from school.
Mm-hmm. I think I think in my region they showed us in the morning. So yeah, it was awesome. It was a show that stuck with me for a long time, and I was really hoping somebody would throw it on there so we could talk a little bit about it. It's just kind of one of those classics that another intro that gets me every time I hear it.
Absolutely. No, David the Gnome, that's a strong call. Whoever left that comment, I salute you. That was excellent.
Oh, yeah. Twist Owl Productions, thanks for that one. Thanks, everybody, for the Twitter shout-outs. That was all the awesome. Hopefully, you guys have plenty of episodes to fill up for the rest of the year at this point with all those awesome suggestions.
There have been some notes made.
Nice. Well, then we're going to get back to our main point to finish up the podcast. We talked about all of our obscure cartoons. Let's just try to quickly narrow down which one we think, out of all the ones we listed, is the most obscure one that people either don't remember or so batshit crazy that how did it even become a thing?
For the people at home, what were those 9 choices again?
So for mine, I'll list off my 3. I'll go. Yep. I had Camp Candy. I had Star Wars Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO, and then I had Denver, the Last Dinosaur.
Good choices. Chan, what were your 3 again?
I had Pro Stars, Battle of the Planets, and Paw Paw Bears.
Paw Paw Bears. That's pretty good. Now, my 3, of course, Rubik the Amazing Cube, Biker Mice from Mars, and Bruno the Kid. All fantastic.
That Rubik's one caught me right off the bat. As soon as you started explaining that one, I'm like, holy shit.
Everybody.
I've never heard of it. It sounds crazy as hell.
Yeah, and for those of you at home, I highly recommend a viewing of it because everything you think it is, it's more. It is more. It keeps giving, and I'm like the whole time I'm watching the episode that we did for our show, my mouth is just agape. It was just
whoa. I feel like somebody mentioned to us, and I was like, that doesn't exist. Don't be an idiot. And I looked it up. I'm like, oh my god, it exists. And then I watched it. I'm like, this is so much worse than I ever thought it would. And I felt like the guy in Event Horizon who's like ripped his eyes out. And like, I've seen hell.
No, I remember specifically how this happened because we were looking for Christmas episodes to pick between for doing our Christmas theme. So we had the Christmas in Pac-Land with the Pac-Man cartoon, and of course the Rambo cartoon when Savage stole Santa, which is one of my favorite things ever to exist. I highly recommend. And then Rubik the Amazing Cube I put on the list, and Chan just flat out told me you made that up. That does not exist. Oh, but it does.
I still don't believe it exists.
and like I said, I mean, out of all the ones we've listed, I mean, can you argue for another one at this point after hearing all the ones we've listed off?
I would put an honorable mention for Paw Paw.
Like
Bears.
Pro Stars is a thing that a lot of people remember, and it's a well-worn trope of celebrities doing stuff terrible, but also I've seen it. Battle of the Planets probably gets a mark because it's old enough that most people have forgotten it, but it still stands up as kind of a quality product and kind of worth watching. Paw Paws is like completely forgotten for good reason. Yeah. But I'm gonna. I'll be honest. Like it's bad, but it's not batshit crazy bad. I can't top Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I mean, especially with mine, like with Denver, the Last Dinosaur, that's more just a focus group type. It was entertaining to some degree, but it was a focus group, so we liked it because they knew everything that we wanted to see. And then with Star Wars Droids, that was just like. That was just a small, tiny little branch into animation of the Star Wars world that we didn't know we were going to get better stuff, but at that point in time, it was just crazy enough, and we liked it because we were all in that Star Wars, fandom. And then the other one, Camp Candy. It's obscure, but
enough people reached out to you to say they loved Camp Candy that you can immediately disqualify it from being
exactly. We have enough people because even myself, I barely remembered it, but once I started going through, I was like, yes, it all started hitting me. But more people than I remember or than I thought would had reached out and said they remembered. So you're right. My choices don't hold a candle to the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I would put of all these, I would also put my vote towards Rubik the again though. Paw Paw Bears. I didn't even know that was a thing.
No, that's true
Chad,
too.
I just want to thank you for bringing that into my life because we are absolutely doing an episode of Paw Paw Bears at some point.
Damn it!
You did it to yourself.
Why do I do this?
It's your own fault.
You did it to yourself.
It's magical and wonderful. Honorable mention, I would say, to Paw Paw Bears. But gosh, guys, Rubik the Amazing Cube it's a gift.
I think that's the winner because I am having a Christmas special take place in Hawaii. I'm intrigued to see how shitty this is. Well, I have to see this now.
You know what? I'll make sure I put a link on our Facebook page so that way you can have easy access to it.
Perfect.
Everybody just needs to see it. That's where I stand.
Exactly, and I'm satisfied with that choice because now, like, I'm truly excited to see how crazy this show is. So, guys, that was everything I wanted to go over in regards to this awesomeness in regards to the obscure 80s and 90s cartoons. I'm glad I had the experts on because you guys filled my head with all kinds of knowledge, just a little bit from what you guys know. So, thank you for taking the time. Like we talked about earlier, let everybody know where they can find you guys' podcasts online, subscribe, and start listening.
Absolutely, though. The show is Knowing Season 3 until it goes back to being known as Knowing is Half the Podcast. You can check us out, facebook.com/Knowing is Half the Podcast, or at G.I. Joe Podcast on Twitter. We're doing a lot of good stuff on both of those sites. So that's the easy way to get access. We're on iTunes and Stitcher. Those are the two big places. But a lot of that's transferred to other apps as well. So if you can't find Knowing Season 3, you can find it on the standard podcast app. Or just, Stitcher is web-based podcasting. If you don't know, you just go to Stitcher.com and then just do a search for Knowing Season 3. And you can listen to it right there on your computer at work or play or wherever the heck it is you feel like doing it.
Don't tell them to shirk.
I mean, if I do it, you can do it too. I mean, I don't do it, of course. I'm a very good employee.
Just use the what's the tab, the
alt tab. Oh, the alt
there
tab.
you go, the alt tab. There you go. You learn those tricks. So yeah, we'll get the links in there on the bottom so people can start subscribing and listening to you guys' awesome podcasts about the cartoon shows. And I hope to have you guys back on again so we can do maybe a special celebrity adaptation, terrible movie adaptations into cartoons, something like that. If you guys already haven't done that already on your show, we'll figure something out. But again, guys, thanks again for coming on to the podcast. Everybody else, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Be Kind and Rewind podcast. Make sure you tune in every Throwback Thursday for new episodes of the podcast. Subscribe, like, follow, and rate the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, YouTube, and Poop Culture Podcast Network at poopculture.com. Also, follow the podcast on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Be Kind Rewind Pod for all of your nostalgic needs. So thanks, and be excellent to each other.
What you just heard was a podcast in the Poop Culture Extended Universe. For more great podcasts, make your way to www.poopculture.com.